If you're like me, you very recently found out that you could get a Chevrolet Equinox or a GMC Terrain with a diesel engine. It is the same diesel engine you can get in the second generation Chevrolet Cruze. Today we're going to tear down this 1.6 liter turbo diesel LH7 out of a 2018 Chevrolet Equinox. This engine has 121,000 miles on it, and it's supposed to be bad. This is someone's core engine, which means that someone bought a used engine, salvage yard, charged them a core charge, obtained the core engine, and then I got it from there. I don't know what's wrong with this engine, but that's what the goal of today's video is, to find out what happened to this engine and why it was replaced. The LH7 is actually of Italian descent. This is an engine developed between General Motors and Fiat about 10 years ago, and you could get them in vehicles in Europe and other parts of the world well before you could get them in North America. These are usually called the 1.6 CDTI before they came to North America. Once they were here, they produced 137 horsepower and 240 foot-pounds of torque, which is a little bit less than its predecessor, but they are thought to be a little more fuel efficient. The big claim to fame with these engines is how quiet they are. There's foam all over this engine. I guess the goal with designing this engine was to make it quiet, which is why, if you're wondering, this engine is not on an engine stand. It's because the timing chain is at the back of the engine, and they did that because the bell housing is supposed to absorb some of the sound and vibration from being a diesel engine. Personally, let's raise your hand if you would sacrifice a little extra noise for ease of service. 1, 2, I'm just kidding. I can't see you guys. I would think that most people, given the choice, would rather have a slightly louder engine that's a lot cheaper to maintain, but that's just me. The good news here is that in Europe, this engine sometimes had the Ecotech moniker, and they have never had timing chain problems with the, these engines are somewhat known for having timing chain issues 50,000 miles or later. Hopefully that's not what happened here, because sometimes it leads to catastrophic failure, but they replaced this engine for a reason. As you notice, this engine is sitting in one of my shipping crates. So what I'm going to do, so I can try to turn this engine over, because I don't know if it turns over. I can assume it does. There's no flex plate on it, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm going to pry it out of this engine stand, and we're going to turn the crank over. That's the plan. Whether it works or not, well, we'll find out. And look at that. The weight of the bar helps me out here. Perfect. I'm sure this will be just fine, right? Yeah, it even feels like it's got compression. There's nothing wrong with this. Ooh, that doesn't feel good. I hear some clickety-clackety from the back of the engine. It's not a big deal, that's just where the timing chain is. Okay, well, it turns over enough that I'm not concerned about getting it apart. The next first thing I'd like to do is strip this side of the engine, since I'm going to have to mount it to an engine stand. Now the crank pulley came off really easy. This is safe. It's so safe. Let's just level this out a little bit. That's perfect. This is gonna work. This might work. We may have to utilize less than the appropriate number of holes. That sounds wrong. Well, it's not pretty, but it is pretty fine. Look at that, it holds itself up. Well, now that we are somewhat not sketchily mounted to the engine stand, we're gonna start tearing this thing apart. I'm gonna start with the turbo. Let's get some brackets out of the way. That's what I wanted to happen. Coolant line. Other coolant line. Actually, nope, that was an oil line there. Where's the oil return? There we are. It's nice, it's all the same bolt size. Let's just start zipping some more bolts out. Now, I don't see a turbo support bracket, So I think we're all right on that front. And I totally missed my bin. Oh, it's kind of loose feeling. Let's see. Oh, we got some fittings up here. All right, that's for wastegate. And this is coolant, which means I need to take that rubber hose off. Always got to fight with these spring clamps. Is that it? I think I still have. Oh yeah, we're almost off. We're off.
Is he the wizard?
All right, so let's take a look at this turbo. It's got all the lines and stuff on it. No shaft play. Oh, the impeller looks like it's got quite a bit of debris on it, but that could be how the engine was stored. The rest of this looks pretty good. This is the VGT actuator here. Can't really see anything in there. This all looks like some sellable parts to me. Now it's time to turn our attention towards the intake manifold. First thing we need to do is take this fuel supply line loose. Oh, we're leaking diesel. Oh, that intake. Oh no, that's just the cover on the intake that looks loose. Remember I said they try to make these things quiet? This is a foam cover. Foam and plastic cover on the intake manifold. Deep bracket this thing a little bit. Did that help us? Well, there's more loose stuff. Oh, wait. This is off the injection pump. It's the return line. I can drape that over there. And now we have a clear shot at the manifold. I think they'll stay in the intake. Oh, yuck. So there's quite a bit of debris that's jammed in here, but the worst part is the way the ports look. There's a lot of deposits, looks like from EGR. Let's see if we can see inside here. Pretty choked up. It's not as bad as we've seen. It's also not as good as we've seen. I wonder if this is something that a catch can. No, that's not going to fix this. Maybe it's how you drive it. This is the most alarming part of it. This is the intake manifold. And look how choked up this is. I would imagine this would run a lot better if you cleaned all this out. All right, we've got some more brackets. All right, we've got some more foam. More efforts to keep this thing quiet. Looks like I need to remove the return. And I don't know how that works. I have an idea though. So I need to get these off the top of the injectors. I think there's these little metal retaining clips that hopefully are one-time use after this. Perfect. I'm sure there's a tool for this. Maybe it's what I'm using. There's that apparatus. Unfortunately, it looks like some of these were broken prior to my acquisition of this engine, but that's all right. And we're out. Now we should be able to remove this foam quieting device. It's just foam. It's really in there though. I've heard that on the diesel Cruze and the other diesel vehicles, they have extra insulation on the firewall, underneath the engine. They try to make them as quiet as possible. I guess that was their goal when designing those. I would just try to design it to be as reliable as possible. That's just me though. Next, the fuel lines. Now the fuel rail. I think. Wait a minute. Oh, that's how that's held on. And now for the injectors. I can honestly say getting injectors out of engines like this, sometimes most of the time it's my biggest fear because they can really get stuck. But not in this case. That's not good. Well, we're not off to a great start. Where was this stored? I'm just glad they're all coming out. Why did I say something? There's still one more injector. It's going to be fine. Yes. Well, it's becoming clear that this engine was left under the protective care of Mother Nature because, yikes, this thing clearly sat with some water in places it wasn't supposed to be. I don't know that actually affects the condition of these injectors. They came right out, which is a great thing. Before we peel the valve cover off, I'm going to remove these engine lift hooks. I suppose the dipstick, it's dry, and the oil on it looks just like oil, so that's good. Now we can start on the valve cover. I have to start on this side. Well, let's see what's behind door number 1. Well, I need blue for that. It's about time blue got to work. Huh. It's pretty clean in there. There's still a chain on it. Although that's really... Oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. I don't see any broken valve train. Maybe we'll get lucky here. So all of this looked really good. I didn't see any built up varnish. There's not a bunch of oil deposits in here. It looks like it was well maintained. But then you get to the chain and that's not what you want to have there. It's tight on that side, but this side, that's too loose. Next thing on the docket, the upper timing cover. See, is there a place to pry anywhere? It feels like I'm going to break it. Let's keep trying. Ooh, it's popping and crackling. It looks like there's a way to do this the right way. So there's a couple threaded bosses. One here. We'll tighten this down. And then one here. And I should probably do them both at the same time. That seems fair. And there we go. That's quite a lot of slack there. That's your injection pump right there. Looks like the cam gear is somewhere as well. I don't see any chunks of blown up stuff in there, so that's good. All the guide material is still on this rail right here. I think it's time. Yes, it is time to pull the lower timing cover. The first step to remove the lower timing cover is to remove the lower timing cover. Ooh, that was bad sounding. Then I think that's it. And this too has threaded holes to walk it off. There's one. Well, I think we need the longer ones. Am I missing one? Oh, wait a second. We got bad stuff happening. Maybe not. Blue. And there we have the lower timing cover. Looks okay. I don't see any forbidden glitter. This all looks pretty decent. Let's see, what have we got going on in here? I don't really see anything too wild. It's the oil pump chain. There's the cam and injection pump chain. And it's got a little intermediate. I don't know if that's a balance shaft or if that's just an idler. But look at that slack there. That is bad. It is not supposed to do that. I don't see any carnage though. This looks pretty decent. It's just a lot of slack in this. Now it could be that this is oil pressure fed, but this part of the chain is super taut. I don't know. Maybe that's just because it's not running. It just still seems excessive to me. Now it's time to peel the timing system apart. We're going to start with the tensioner. Just going to look the other direction. This seems... Four. All right, now we can get some of these rails out of the way. This is all under a lot of tension. Let's loosen this. This seems... What happened? Oh, I see. So that guide looks original to late 2017. Definitely an original part. It looks good. I don't see any issues with it at all. Do we just slide this off of here? Is that how that works? That's how it's working. Now what? What have I done? Well, let's see if we can unbolt these. Also original. Looks pretty decent. And that one fell down. It was good though. Now this should come off, right? Look at that chain. Doesn't seem to be any play in the links. So I don't think this was stretched. We're gonna leave the cam gear on there just like so. And now it's time to crack the cam craps off. Those aren't tight. Oh, I see these come off as an assembly. Nice. Well, all the rollers seem to feel pretty good. Journals look nice. I see no signs of a lubrication type failure on this side, on this top end of the motor. Everything feels and looks good. Same thing with the cam caps. Little bit of wear, nothing abnormal. Camshafts look good. I don't see any signs of failure yet. I hope I'm not tearing down a good engine. Before we get to the big head bolts, we have a couple to take out. The head bolts are nothing fancy, 18mm headed bolts. I got the brakes on my stand. Not crazy tight. They are pretty tight, actually. Just not at first. Look at the size of them bolts. What will this reveal? Oh, there's a head gasket. Gotta be careful with these things. They will slice you up. This one looks to be okay. I don't see any areas where it's breached. Looks good. There's definitely some moisture in here, but I feel like that just fell in when I pulled the injectors out. Before we get too carried away, we must conduct our scientific test. That's fun. Uh-oh, I heard something banging. Is there something wrong here? Maybe something with that cylinder. I can't really tell, but nothing's broken. Is everything reaching the top? I think everything reaches the top. I think we're okay. Turns over nice and easy. Well, there's definitely some crud in there, but that looks just like dirt and water that fell in when I pulled the injectors out. I bet this engine was outside. But if you look closely, it's definitely some vertical scratches in cylinder 2. Same thing with cylinder 3. They're kind of glazed as well. I don't see any smoking gun per se. Not yet. See, there's some pretty deep ones down there. Let's go look at that cylinder head. So the cylinder head looks to be in excellent condition. I don't see any cracks, signs of coolant in the combustion chamber, no signs of piston to valve contact. This all looks good, and it is wet where I pulled the injectors out, which tells me there was water sitting in the injector holes. All right, now we'll start on the injection pump, see if this impact will knock this off. Probably not. Probably need to hold. Oh, look. Perfect. That doesn't come off that easily. All right, let's get the bolts out of the actual pump from the block and see if we can't knock that loose.
Will you?
This is just going to have to live over there. There, now we have a better shot at this. Is there just 2? No, there's got to be more than that. I think there's just 2. Yep, just 2. Aww. Just going to give it a little tap. Just a little tap. Nothing too crazy. We're going to put the nut on it here. Try to get it loose so without mashing up threads. Oh, the whole pump's coming out. See, will this come off easy? No. Let's get my air helper. I'm just going to give it a little jolt, just a little help. Just like that. That's all we needed. Just a little help here. And the injection pump is out. Now it is time for the water pump. First we'll get this apparatus off. Pretty simple. And now for the water pump. Is that it? I need glue. And one more bolt. And the water pump is off. This kind of comes apart. Should I take this apart? I'm going to take it apart. We're just going to zip some bolts out. Nothing fancy. Ow! So this has an electronic thermostat. And here's the water pump. Plastic impeller. Looks pretty good. No play. Spins nice. No damage to the impeller itself or the pulley. This is an excellent condition water pump. Before we roll this over, I'm going to do one thing and remove this water outlet. So what's the over-under on this thing puking its guts out when I roll it over? Let's find out. We definitely have some oil. Made a wee bit of a mess. Whilst this thing is relieving itself, we're going to remove the oil filter. Please come with me. No? Okay. You're going to come out. Right? Does this spin off or something? No. This will do it.
It did it.
Let's go take a look at this. Yikes. Filter. Yikes. So the yikes was the fact that it looks like this filter has been sucked in. And if you look at this end, this has been in there for a hot minute. I'm looking at it, and it's definitely a dirty filter, but I don't see large chunks of metal or anything else terribly concerning. So I suppose that's good. Now it's time to peel the oil pan off. You know, it just occurred to me that I've probably been going back to front. Better take some Z-Pack. Yes? No? Are you coming off? Or am I just rotating this? That sounded great. And the great reveal. Looks decent. So the screen, perfectly clear. The rest of this all looks pretty good. Can't see everything. Don't see anything loose, feel anything loose. Here's your oil pump chain. Looks like a pretty simple thing to get apart. Inside of the oil pan, pretty clean, really. I don't really see anything too terrible in here. No bits of metal, no chunks of anything. Looks good. All right, now we'll take this off. Leave that right there for safekeeping. And the tensioner for this chain. That feels, watch it, fine. Now this should hopefully just wiggle off there. Look at that. Nice and easy. Spin this pump over here. Oh, we got geysers. That's kind of fun and messy. I regret that. I very much regret hitting the trigger all the way. And that wasn't even all the way. All right, I'm going to stop playing and we're going to pull this oil pump off. Should be it. Should come right off. Look at that. Here's our oil pump, which is draining oil into the rest of the engine. It's fine. Now, I don't think I'm going to take this thing apart unless I find signs of oil starvation in here. Because I don't think there's going to be anything to see. I can tell you it sounds like a vane style pump. While we're here, we're going to get this oil cooler assembly. Well, that was pretty easy. And it's empty. Nope, it's not empty. Just pour that out in here. Full of oil. Next, we're going to remove the aluminum bed plate. That's this piece here. It's got the main caps built in. That's what a bed plate is. And that'll allow us access to all of the bolts for the rods and pistons. And then we can hopefully turn the crank over, get to everything. It'll be nice and easy. Those aren't very tight at all. It's amazing. I think my my little impact will take those out. Let's find out. Haha, maybe not. It does. No, we're just going to use the big impact. What am I doing? I think I got them all. Hopefully the front main seal won't fight us too much and this will pop up pretty easily. Except I need to get that bolt out if I intend to get this apart. All right, did I miss anything else? Something is keeping this thing together. I'm sure you guys see it. I don't see it. Oh wait, it was just really tight tolerances? I think we're onto something here. Success! Bed plate is off. Well, this seems to move pretty evenly, pretty easily anyway. I don't know, there's like some rough spots in here. Well, in this location, I can get all of the rod caps loose, and then we should be able to get this crank right out. Time to crack the rod caps loose. There is a good quart of oil in here, but we'll get it. Now hopefully this crank just lifts right out. Now I'm going to turn this over and pour the remaining oil out of itself. There's quite a bit of oil in here. Quite a bit. While it's like this, let's see if we can't push rods and pistons out of it. No. Only to the top of the bores. That's it. We're gonna have to. Hey, these fell back down. What the? We're gonna have to rotate a little bit and taparoo them out. Let's start at the rod bearings. Upper shells all have moderate wear, but you guys told me this is pretty normal on diesel engines. I still don't like to see it, but everything's pretty uniform, which tells me that that's normal, or at least relatively normal. Whether that's a lot of wear for 121,000 miles, I couldn't tell you. But they don't look bad. Nothing's gouged up or scratched up too terribly. Rods and pistons is where it gets a little interesting. So, if you look really close, there's one little divot in that piston. I looked these over pretty closely. I didn't see any other damage. There's no signs that the valves made contact with the pistons. There is some skirt wear though. I wouldn't call it a lot, but it's not nothing. The oil rings also look pretty plugged up. I don't know if that's a really common problem on diesel engines or not. I would imagine with emissions it's probably a probability. Probably the most profound thing I've ever said. This one looks a lot better. I don't see any damage there. Everything looks pretty decent, really. I expected to find, a bent rod or something stuck in water because I didn't see any signs of oiling failures. It all looks pretty decent. A little bit of skirt wear there. Not bad. Not bad at all. The crankshaft is beautiful. There are no major scratches, not even minor scratches. This looks very nice. And the main bearings match that as well. No major wear. Some wear, but not bad. Let's take a look at these bores. This one's got some pretty significant vertical scratches, which I'm not sure why, because the pistons didn't really match that. I'm not a diesel expert, so I don't know why these things happen. I'm sorry, guys, if this was a boring teardown. I wonder what those stains are there at the top of the bore. I know I've said this before multiple times on the channel. I do not like tearing down good engines. I like selling good engines, tearing down bad engines. It's kind of what we do here. But in this case, you never really know what's wrong with these engines. I don't always get a story. I don't always get details. And the last thing I would like to do is sell an engine that someone told me was bad as good. It's just not what I like to do. I like to sell engines I know run, done all of my tests on, and I can stand behind. In this case, this was an engine with a bunch of question marks. And I think this engine was replaced because it had a rattly timing chain. I heard that they get rattle because of insufficient oil flow to the timing chain tensioner, and apparently there's an updated gasket and tensioner. Not quite sure how hard that job is, but I've also read that it is an engine out job. I don't know how hard it is to pull the engine, but that's a lot of labor no matter how you shake it. And these engines used are $1,500, $2,000. They're more plentiful than you'd think for how rare they are, which tells me there's not a ton of demand for them, which means someone could pay a bunch of money in labor and parts or just buy a used engine that hopefully doesn't have the same problem. I think that's how I got this engine. I think that's why it was replaced. Working on it, though, is easy. This was one of the easiest engines I've worked on in a long time. If it wasn't for the chain being in the back of the engine, I'd actually kind of like this. I think if they moved the chain to the outside of the engine so it was more serviceable without engine removal, like most 4-cylinders are, this would be a great vehicle for most people, especially people that like to turn their own wrenches. And they seem pretty reliable, seem pretty robust. So this has a whole bunch of good parts. I didn't really see a ton of damage in this thing at all. So if you'd like to buy any parts out of this engine, either for your desk or for your diesel, Cruze, Equinox, or Terrain, I'm going to leave our email in the video description. You can also go to Importapart.com and peruse our inventory. I've been uploading our parts cars every single week. Yes, I bought another Miata parts car. There's always going to be a Miata here. I can't help it. It's what I do. I really hope you enjoyed this teardown as always. I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.